myself, and anyone that knows me or follows me knows that Volk is 100% one of my favorite fighters in terms of just
Likewise.
mindsets and also ability in the cage and just everything together that he embodies being a champion well and truly. His mental fortitude is as impressive as absolutely anyone in sport, let alone the UFC. So I always love watching him compete, and I have a big soft spot in my heart for freestyle MMA as well, going down there and spending some
Yeah.
time there with a few of the boys and obviously Joe Lopez and getting to chat to him. But when I look at this fight, it's so interesting because on one hand, we have Yair Rodriguez, and I look at what he does, and I watched the Dan Hardy breakdown, which was excellent, and all the skills he does with as much randomness as it looks like, he also has a lot of intention and deliberate nature to what he's doing and how he sets things up. And the thing I feel like is going to be the only area I can see Volk struggling is sometimes in his defensive duties. He tends to lean out of range at times. He gets quite comfortable in the pocket. He has quite a nice guard often, and he sometimes gets quite comfortable. And we saw it against Max Holloway a few times. And I just think if he does that against Yair, he could run himself onto a dangerous high kick or spinning back kick or something wild of that variety. So I would look out for that first and foremost. But when I look at Yair Rodriguez and I look at the complexity of his striking and the diversity of it, laterally, moving backwards, both stances, he can do things that realistically no one else in the world of fighting can do. There's no one else that can do what he does, really, in mixed martial arts. There really isn't. But then, when I think about that and I think of all the threats that he poses, like you said, on the feet at range, in close quarters, he can strike at every range. That's what's so impressive. He's got his long range weapons, his mid range weapons, and then we've seen what he can do in close range against people like the Korean Zombie, obviously to name a few. But the thing that's so impressive is when you look at the other side of it, you say, well, yeah, Volk has probably never fought a Yair Rodriguez because no one really has, but until people have fought Volk, they've never really fought a Volk
That's true
either.
as well.
And as good as you think Yair is, and when I think about it, as skilled and as difficult a puzzle as he can make it, I then think, but on the flip side, we have Volk, who equally has both stances, defensively, offensively, very sound. His distance management, his footwork, it's to a level that not many people have ever seen. And although we've seen Yair against Max Holloway, we know that Volk just has a slightly more layered game than Max when it comes to striking and that IQ that he uses with his footwork and cutting off his opponents and changing range. So I think on the feet, this is super interesting.
I think the one you're talking about, the high kick being the way thing. I think it's actually the body kick. I think he threw that a lot against Emmett. He's such a weird way of throwing it. It's a very weird. It's a very weird tell. And obviously I'm not gonna. I think we know that Volkanovski and his team and they're gonna be analyzing that. They're gonna be ready for that. Of course they are. But when you're in there, they're gonna know with a guy like to just expect the complete opposite or something else, because it's just, you don't know fighting a guy like that. I feel like with Volkanovski, you know what you're gonna get, and that's what makes him so impressive, is because you can't stop it anyway. He's that brilliant. He's none of his stuff is flashy. It's functional, but he does it to an absolutely elite standard across every precipice. So that's what he's so difficult to deal with. So for me, but the body kicks, I think are the real. If that's how I see it going, I think the body kicks early in the first few rounds, really just throwing those, and to the leg as well. A few calf kicks in there, masking those underneath. I could see that being a real weapon for sure.
It's a good,
but again, it's a close fight.
It's a good point. It's a good point that you brought up about the team, because when I went down to freestyle and I spoke to Joe, I said about the camp for Yair Rodriguez, I said, are you bringing anyone in to emulate his style because he's so tricky? And the person that he said they were working with is Cole Van Room. For anyone that knows, works with Adesanya on his striking, who is, don't quote me on this, but something like an 8-time world champion in his discipline. And his kicks and the diversity and creativity in his kicks are second to none in the world of combat sport. And that's not to say that he's going to be able to perfectly emulate Yair Rodriguez, because he's his completely own style. But in terms of getting prepared, you know that freestyle MMA, you know that city kickboxing, you know that Frank Hitman, you know that Craig Jones, you know that Carl Van Room are going to be in that training room brainstorming some of the finest game planning that there is in mixed martial arts. And you're looking at some of the smartest minds. And I think when they look to break this fight down, they're going to look to corral Yair Rodriguez, get him to fight backwards, try and suffocate him, use Volk's footwork that he does so well about making you think that you're just out of range, but slowly he's drawing you into range, and then he's landing right hands and he's training together, he's wrestling. I think that he's going to try and make this a close quarters fight. I think we're going to look for him to try and get tight body locks and maybe try and take Yair down and land ground and pound. It's going to be very hard for Yair to work submissions off his back and his attack, even though he's so good at it. Volk doesn't allow those things to happen because he's not playing in guard. He's not playing in guard. He's creating frames. He's getting that heavy scrum-like structure. It's like he's clearing out a ruck in rugby union, and he's just raining down heavy shots. And I think if he's going to win this fight, he's going to need to suffocate that style of Yair Rodriguez, know that he's going to get a little bit wet as he walks out into the rain, take him down, take him to deep waters, and he's just going to have to put a pace on him, because we've seen the blueprint almost there a little bit from Max Holloway, but it's one thing to say it, it's another thing to do it.
I kind of want you to stop talking because you're selling it to me and you're making me just doubt everything, and it's pissing me off.